Hey, hello, and welcome to this episode of Learn Everyday English, your roadway to English proficiency. Hey, glad to have you with me today. I got a interesting topic to talk to you about, and it has also to do with racial passing. I made a video about this maybe a week or two ago. It was very popular, and in doing that research, I ran across another interesting story about a lady who went to a college called Vassar, and she was a black person, but she passed as white, and very interesting. But before I get into the details on that, there's 3 things you can do for me. Hey, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and 3, tell your friends about it so that they can benefit from these videos too. Oops, just like you. That's my Ring doorbell chime going off. Let me turn that off. Any of you have a Ring doorbell where you live? Okay, and I have a How to Talk Texan ebook that's out on Amazon. You can get that. I have the links below in the description, so click on that if you'd like to get a copy of that. They're selling well. I'm very happy with that. Also, if you want to buy me a cup of coffee and support the channel, if you like what I'm doing here, just buy me a cup of coffee. There's a link below. Don't feel any pressure, though, but I've had some people that have done that as well, so I appreciate that. I appreciate all you listeners. So without further ado, hey, let's jump in to today's episode. Okay, I'm going to get started. We're going to be talking about a lady, and her name is, got some notes I'm going to be referring to. Her name was Anita Hemmings. And she has a very fascinating story about what happened to her. But she was born on June 8th, 1872. So this happened quite a while back. And her parents were Robert Williamson Hemmings and Dora Logan Hemmings. And they were both born in Virginia. It's another state here in the U.S. And their parents were slaves. So that's interesting. So they were born to parents who were slaves. Her father, Robert, worked as a janitor. And her mother, Dora, was listed in the U.S. Census. The census is where they take a note of how many people live in the country and the family size and that type of thing. So the census record shows that she was a homemaker. Do you know what that is? Homemaker is just basically she was like a housewife. She took care of the kids and she took care of the house and that type of thing. But it's interesting that the parents of Anita Hemmings, Robert and Dora, both identified themselves as or considered themselves to be mulattoes. And mulattoes is just another word to describe people of a mixed race, and specifically they were mixed black and white heritage. So they had maybe a black parent and a white parent. So these people are called mulattoes. And this was a term that was very common during slavery here in the U.S., to describe the offspring of 2 racially defined groups, like I said, white and black. And in doing this research, I just happened to stumble upon, I just came across, not looking for it. There was a kind of a very well-known painting I didn't know about titled The Redemption of Ham. And here's a picture of it by a Galician painter, a Spanish painter named Modesto Brocos, I guess in 1895. This is a copy that's in the Museum of National in Brazil, Museo Nacional de Bellas Artes in Brazil. And it's this picture painting is interesting because it depicts is another word for shows. It shows a grandmother who's a black, dark-skinned black woman, A mulatto mother, mulatto is like her daughter, and a white father, and their quadroon child. Quadroon, I guess, is a child that has 1/4 black blood. So they're showing 3 generations: the grandmother, the mother, and the granddaughter. But this painting is famous because it's supposedly representing a concept called racial whitening. How maybe some racial groups or some blacks or dark-skinned blacks wanted to whiten, I guess, their family lineage, so they would marry lighter-skinned people or white people, and the subsequent generations would become lighter and lighter, or whiter and whiter. And this is called racial whitening. And apparently I've read some information and seen some videos that this was common in a lot of some Latin American countries as well. So I don't know much about that. If you know something about racial whitening in Latin America or Spanish-speaking countries, hey, let me know. Drop me a message in the comments. But what was interesting about Anita Hemmings, who we're talking about today, and here's a picture of, I guess, a quarterly magazine that the alumni of Vassar College or Vassar University, they get, and they actually ran an article about Anita Hemmings in the winter 2001 edition of this alumni kind of quarterly magazine. And on the front was a picture of Anita Hemmings. And she, like I said, she went to Vassar College in 1893, and along with 103 other girls who were entering the same class that she was in. So they were actually part of the graduating class of 1897, because it's a 4-year college. So she entered in 1893 and graduated in 1897. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Vassar College. Here's a picture of the college grounds. But Vassar is a private liberal arts college in Poughkeepsie, New York State. It was founded in 1861 by Matthew Vassar, and it was the second college in the U.S. That granted degrees to women. It was the second. So it was fairly instrumental in helping women out, offering women a chance to get a college degree. But in the beginning, Vassar College was really a college for, we say, social elites, like the upper class, the more important class of families and of the Protestant establishments. A lot of the families that went there were Protestant families and had a lot of money or influential. But it was an all-girls school, so only girls went there initially. But in 1969, it became co-ed. We say co-ed or co-educational. That means it started to educate boys as well as girls in 1969. Today, it offers many Bachelor of Arts degrees in more than 50 majors or 50 subject areas. And currently there are about 2,500 students that enroll and go to Vassar. And interesting that U.S. and World Reports, a very well-known magazine, in the 2025 edition, ranked a lot of best colleges, and it ranked Vassar as tied for the 12th best liberal arts college in the U.S. out of 211 colleges. So it's a very highly rated college. 12th out of 211. But it's interesting to note that initially Vassar College did not accept any black female students for a long time until 1940. So it was founded in 1861, but it didn't start officially accepting black students until 1940, or almost 80 years after it was founded. So that was something quite, I guess, interesting. So Anita Hemmings enrolled in Vassar College, and you might wonder, well, how did she do that if they weren't accepting black students in 1897? So I guess she enrolled herself into the college as a white woman. So she says she was passing as a white woman, or she pretended to be white, because as you can see from the picture, we say she was very light-skinned or very fair-skinned. So in 1897, the world discovered something about Anita Hemmings, that she was actually a black student. She was Vassar's first black graduate, more than 40 years before the college opened its doors to African Americans. But like I said, in the 19th century, Vassar had a very good high atmosphere of being aristocratic, like entertaining or having families of the more upper and wealthier class. On the application to get into Vassar, there was a box to check if you were black, but it actually said colored. But Anita Hemmings didn't mark the colored box on the application, so the school didn't know that she was black, or another word, or sometimes they would refer to black people as colored. I don't really like that terminology. But like I said, she didn't mark that box on the application, so she left that blank, so they didn't know that she was actually a black female. And in descriptions of her, she said she has a clear olive complexion, heavy black hair and eyebrows, and coal black eyes. And this was said by a newspaper in Boston. She wrote of Anita when she was 25 years old, when she was graduating. And he also commented and said this: the strength of her strain of white blood has so asserted itself that she could pass anywhere simply as a pronounced brunette of white race. So this reporter said, hey, she looked just like a white woman, a white person, so she could pass as belonging to the white race. And we say, and pass, she did pass. But then she eventually ran into a problem because she had a white roommate. And eventually the white roommate became suspicious of Anita's background and began to suspect, well, maybe she was not a white woman after all. And she told her father about it, this white roommate. And then this was only a few weeks before graduation. So Anita was at the college for almost 4 years. And when she was about to graduate, her white roommate got suspicious and told her father. And then the father, I guess, hired a private investigator to travel to Anita's hometown of Boston to do some investigating to find out what her family background actually was. And it was discovered that Anita's parents, Dora, Logan, and Robert, had conspired or had kind of worked together to keep the daughter's, Anita's race, a secret. But I read something too that Anita's roommate got suspicious because one time Anita's brother came by Vassar to visit with her. And here's a picture of her brother. Her brother's name was Frederick. He was very smart as well. He was actually ended up going to MIT, or Massachusetts Institute of Technology, a very well-known school for the sciences. So he went to visit Anita at Vassar, but here's a picture of him. As you can see, he's of darker skin or darker complexion, and he looks like, African American or black. And I think this made Anita's roommate suspicious. So that's when she told her father to, and then the father looked into investigating Anita and her family. But it was interesting that when this scandal broke about Anita, the school finding out that she was actually black, I think Anita's father was interviewed by a newspaper, and he said this, and this is a quote: "We know our daughter went to Vassar as a white girl and stayed there as such. As long as she conducted herself as a lady, she never thought it necessary to proclaim the fact that her parents were mulattoes," Hemmings' father told the newspaper reporter when the story broke later that summer. But she was a very good student. She mastered Latin, ancient Greek, and French. She was a soprano in the college choir. She sang solos at recitals at local churches in Poughkeepsie. And she was described by her classmates as an exotic beauty. And some people believe that she may have had a Native American or American Indian heritage too. So she was very smart and fit in very well with the community, the white community there in Poughkeepsie. But I think once the school found out The president of the university had to make a decision whether he was going to allow her to graduate or not. But he eventually, agreed and conceded and allowed Anita to graduate and receive her diploma. So she was actually the first female black student to graduate from Vassar College. And here's a newspaper article that I guess came out once the scandal broke, and I'm going to read some of that. It's very interesting, and it's titled A Vassar Romance. A colored girl graduates from the famous college. She did not disclose the fact until just before her graduation. Well, she didn't actually disclose it. Somebody disclosed it for her. The handsomest girl, handsomest or the most handsome, but we don't really refer to women as handsome. They're known as the brunette beauty, the brunette beauty. So society and educational circles in Poughkeepsie were astonished by the announcement in a local paper that one of the graduating class of Vassar College this year was a colored girl who, concealing her race, entered the college, took the 4 years course, and finally confessed the truth to a professor a few days before commencement, or commencement's another word for graduation. The facts were communicated to the faculty or the staff of the school, which body in secret session decided to allow the girl, who is Miss Anita Hemmings of Boston, to receive her diploma with her class. Oh, here we go. Vassar is noted for its exclusiveness, and every official of the college refuses to say aught or say nothing regarding this girl graduate. She has been known as one of the most beautiful young women who ever attended the great institution of learning. And then they had another picture of her in the article. So I thought that's interesting. She made headlines, we say in English, or she made the newspaper about this scandal. Okay, and that's what happened to Anita Hemmings. But it's interesting to note that later on in life, Anita got married, and I'm going to talk to you about that. But she ended up having a daughter, and the daughter's name was Ellen Love, and she was a member of the class of 1927. And she was also a graduate of Vassar. But you might be wondering, hey, well, if Anita was black, and how did she have a daughter who ended up going to Vassar in 1927? Because they didn't accept black female students at that time either. But Anita's daughter, Ellen Love, was raised in New York City, where her mother, Anita, continued to pass as white, as did her father, Dr. Andrew Love. So Anita eventually married a man by the name of Dr. Andrew Love. He was a medical doctor, and he was also African American or black, but he was passing as white himself. So when the two of them married, they both continued to pass as white people. They had a daughter, Ellen Love, and she was also passing as white, or she may not have even known she was actually had black blood. So like her parents before, Anita conspired or agreed with her daughter to keep the daughter's race a secret in order to let her attend Vassar. So on her application, Ellen Love marked her race as white. So Ellen said she was white and said that her ancestry was French and English, just as her mother did. So Anita Hemmings also marked on her application that she was white. But some people say the college probably knew or could figure out that between Anita going there and Ellen being Anita's daughter, that maybe Ellen was not white, but the university did not really do anything about it. So they seemed to kind of just let it go and not make an issue about it. And in fact, Ellen Love did graduate as a white woman from Vassar in 1927. So here we see that Anita Hemmings graduated from Vassar, and then her daughter Ellen Love in 1927. But then in 1940, I think that's when Vassar started allowing black students to go to the university. The first black female, knowingly black female student that Vassar admitted or allowed to come to the university was a woman by the name of Beatrix McCleary Hamburg. And she, like I said, was admitted to Vassar in 1940. And she was instrumental in recruiting or getting a lot of other African American students to come to Vassar. And there were also three other students that followed Beatrix. There was Camille Cottrell and June Jackson, and they both entered Vassar in 1945. Or they both entered 1 year later in 1941 and graduated in 1945. And here's a picture showing the first three African American students that were admitted into Vassar: Beatrix Hamburg, Camille Cottrell, and June Jackson. And I found on the internet, I found there was a video where later in life, Dr. Beatrix Hamburg was interviewed, and the title of this kind of documentary is called In Her Own Words, and I found this on Vimeo, so I would need to give them credit. And I recorded a short little clip, I think about a minute and a half, 2-minute clip of Beatrix being interviewed. And it's interesting to note that she was actually a pioneer in medicine and child psychiatry, so she was very intelligent. She was the first African American to attend Vassar College, officially African American, in 1940, and was also the first African American woman to attend Yale Medical School in 1944. She also was a pioneer in advancing the field of child and adolescent psychiatry at Stanford, Harvard, Mount Sinai, and Cornell medical schools. And in the 1990s, she was president of the W.T. Grant Foundation. She also served as director of the President's Commission on Mental Health under President Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter. So she had a very prestigious career. So here's a short little film clip of Dr. Beatrix Hamburg.
But I carried on. Yeah. And I was a very good student, and so I was informed by a Methodist minister that at Vassar they wanted to find a black student, and he was going to suggest me. So I was in essence recruited to go there. And my mother thought that was just fine. It's a perfectly good school. And so they were eager to have me come, so I got very good scholarships and whatnot. And college was wonderful. It was a great school, and I was very well accepted, and I had the person who became my very best friend throughout my life, Martha Solnit, was my roommate. They didn't give me a roommate the first year because they didn't know how I would work out. And
what was it like? I mean, you were in effect integrating this school. I mean, this
well, right.
For
yeah,
Parks or anybody like that.
Well, that's right.
What was it like?
So that was one of the times that it was a first for me. It probably was another first when my mother took me out of the hospital against the doctor's orders. But in any case, I didn't have anything to do with that one.
But did you feel, did you experience any discrimination or anything like that?
On the contrary, I felt that I was being killed with kindness. And
so continuing on, I want to talk about, I guess, a lot of the people that ended up passing as white, the blacks that were passing or pretending to be white. There was a high cost to pay. They had to sacrifice a lot. And there were large numbers of African Americans at this time, or even into the turn of the century. And they said that passing was a means to gain opportunities in education. They could get a lot better educational opportunities because the country was under the laws of segregation. And those families who had risen to that level of educational aspiration or wanting to get a better education or economics, get a better job, but they were still excluded from most of the elite institutions. So the blacks couldn't go to a lot of these better institutions or colleges. And passing was typically opened a door or doors to just more or better education. And you also could get more economic benefits and professional benefits financially in terms of housing, jobs, all these things that you were denied as a black person in America. So people who want good jobs, who want opportunities, there was a saying, they just pass. They pass as white. But that doesn't mean that they passed in their private lives. They just did so maybe in their educational or professional lives. They would sometimes go back home to their black families, but a lot of them didn't do that as well. So after leaving Vassar College, getting back to Anita Hemmings, she returned to her old neighborhood in Boston where she grew up, and she worked several years as a cataloger in the Boston Public Library. So she worked for the library system. Then in 1903, she married Dr. Andrew Jackson Love, and here's a picture of him. And as you can see, he's very light-skinned as well, light-skinned black man. And he was a physician or doctor practicing in New York City. And the couple, they both ended up settling down or living in Manhattan and lived as white people, as a white couple. And so, like I said before, like Anita, Dr. Love was passing as whites. And he was a graduate of the historically blacks-only Meharry Medical College in Tennessee. And he listed his alma mater as Harvard University Medical School, though. But getting back and having to live as white people, Anita and her husband, Andrew, had to give up a lot of things. And here's a quote I found. They said, "Those who pass as white have a severe dilemma before they decide to do so, since a person, you must give up all family ties a lot of times and loyalties to the black community in order to gain economic and other opportunities. And in some families, the ties to black roots have been so long broken that later generations are shocked to discover their real heritage." So a lot of times these people and families are living lives as white people or white families for so long that their children or grandchildren, they don't even realize that they were black or have black ancestry in the family because nobody has ever talked to them about it. Because secrecy a lot of times had to be of the utmost importance. You couldn't talk about it. You didn't want to be found out that you were actually black, because everything that you worked for could be taken away from you very quickly. So there's no really numbers to indicate how many African Americans, say, crossed over to the white world to search for better opportunities. But there is a lot of documentation about this fact. And to follow up, to continue, so Anita and her husband, Andrew, had other children. There was a daughter named Ellen, a daughter named Barbara, and Andrew Jr., but they raised them as whites, sending them to the demanding Horace Mann School in Manhattan and to an exclusive whites-only camp in Cape Cod. So their children grew up in exclusive communities because apparently, I guess they were well off, we could say, well-to-do. They had money because the father was a doctor. Anita graduated from Vassar, so she had a good education. And one of Anita's relatives made a comment and said that Anita's mother, remember Anita's mother, he only came to visit Anita at her house just once during the whole time that Anita and Andrew were married. And when she did come to visit Anita, she had to come in and use the servant's entrance. So she didn't enter through the front door. She had to enter through the back door because, she was of darker skinned. So that's the lengths that people had to go to maybe hide their black heritage. So Anita's mother didn't or couldn't even come through the front door to visit her. And she only visited her once the whole time that she was married. So that's in a way kind of sad. And it's interesting to note that Ellen Love, the daughter of Anita Hemmings, I guess never told anybody that she was had her mom or her grandmother were black, and she took that secret, it says, to the grave with her. So I guess she grew up raised as a white woman, and that's the way she died, as a white woman. She didn't want anybody to know. So finally, just to close, I guess I found another picture. Like I said earlier, Anita was sang in the choir at Vassar, but they had something called the Glee Club, which maybe is another kind of type of choir or singing group. And here's a picture of Anita in the Glee Club or singing group, and she is the fourth person from the right, in the Glee Club. So as you can see, she blended in just well with the other white female students there at Vassar. So I want to give credit also to where I found a lot or most of this information from this alumni quarterly magazine from Vassar that came out in the winter of 2021. But it was written by Olivia Mancini, who was also a Vassar student. She graduated from Vassar in 2000, and she ended up being a reporter for the Poughkeepsie Journal, and she wrote this article, so I need to give her a lot of credit. So if you're interested, I'll leave a link to the article as well if you want to see the original and read about that. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about in this video, about the very interesting, kind of fascinating story about Anita Hemmings. I said I didn't know anything about this. I'd never heard of her before. I never heard of this story until I did the research on the previous story about racial passing. And I'm sure there's not a lot of people in the country or even Black Americans that know about this story, have heard about Anita Hemmings. She was, in a sense, a trailblazer, we say, a trailblazer. She made a new path for a lot of people behind that came after her. It took a lot of courage, I guess you could say, to do what she did and what her mother did, just to give her a better life and a better life for her children as well. So what do you think about the story? What do you think about passing, racial passing in general? Let me know in the comments. Well, I'm going to wrap that up. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Hey, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and 3, tell your friends about it. And we'll be bringing you more videos in the future. And thanks for watching this episode of Learn Everyday English, and we'll talk to you later. Hey, goodbye.